For 300 million years, the night belonged to something else. Not you, not your ancestors, not anything that walked upright or used tools or sat around a fire telling stories. The night belonged to the hunters, the ones with wide pupils built to swallow the last drop of light. The ones with heat-sensing organs that turned darkness into a map. The ones whose ears could track a heartbeat through solid undergrowth from 100 feet away. For almost the entire history of life on this planet, darkness was a wall, and everything that couldn't see through it stayed behind it, silent, pressed against the ground, waiting for the sun to come back. Your ancestors were on the wrong side of that wall for a very long time. And then, somewhere between 400,000 and 1 million years ago, something happened. A moment so small it left almost no trace in the fossil record. A moment so ordinary that the humans involved probably didn't even register what they had just done. Someone kept a fire burning through the night. That was it. That was the entire revolution. Not a weapon, not a migration, not a new species. A fire, still lit, at 3 a.m. In a world where every other human before that moment had let it go out, and the night has never been the same since. Here is what you need to understand about darkness before fire. It was not an inconvenience. It was a kill zone. The animals that hunted early humans were not creatures that politely waited for daylight. Cave lions were crepuscular, most active at dusk and dawn. Leopards were almost entirely nocturnal. Hyenas did their most efficient killing in complete darkness. The giant short-faced bear, which stood over 11 feet tall and could outrun a horse, had night vision that made the African savanna at midnight look like a lit room. Early humans, by contrast, had the night vision of a creature that evolved in sunlight, which is exactly what they were. Compared to a cat, a human eye in darkness is almost useless. The pupil can dilate, the rods in the retina can try to compensate, but the fundamental architecture of the human eye is built for day, not for dark. So what did early humans do when the sun went down? The same thing every vulnerable animal does. They went still, they went quiet. They went as small as they could, and they waited. The night was not a time for activity. The night was a time for surviving until morning. For hundreds of thousands of years, that was the deal. Daytime belonged to humans. Nighttime belonged to everything that wanted to eat them. And then the fire stayed lit. What a sustained fire does to a nocturnal predator is not complicated. It does exactly what it looks like it should do. It hurts their eyes. It confuses their heat-sensing systems. It announces the presence of something unpredictable and dangerous in a way that every instinct they possess to avoid. But here's the part that gets overlooked. The fire didn't just protect the humans sitting around it. It changed what the darkness meant to every animal within a mile radius. Because fire is loud, not in sound, but in signal. A fire that burns through the night is a fire someone is tending. A fire someone is tending means something awake on the other side of it. Something awake at 3 a.m. that isn't fleeing, isn't panicking, isn't doing any of the things prey animals do in the dark. Something awake at 3 a.m. that chose to be there. To the predators circling at the edge of the light, this was a completely new category of information. Prey did not choose the night. Prey endured it. Whatever was sitting in that firelight, calm, awake, present, was not operating by the rules that every other living thing on this planet followed. The predators pulled back. Not forever, not completely, but enough. And in the brutal arithmetic of prehistoric survival, enough was everything. Now here is where the story gets dark. And I mean that in both senses of the word. Because humans didn't stop at keeping fires burning. They never stop at anything. Within a few thousand years of mastering sustained fire, human activity patterns began to shift. Hunting extended into early morning hours. Movement through territory happened at times that had previously been completely off limits. And then, slowly, experimentally, dangerously, humans began moving through full darkness. Not because they could see in the dark. They still couldn't, but because they had learned something that changed the calculation entirely. They had learned that the things that could see in the dark were afraid of them. Think about what that means. For 300 million years, nocturnal predators had operated in a world where darkness was their absolute advantage. Their eyes, their ears, their senses, all of it calibrated for a world their prey could not navigate. The night was their domain by evolutionary right. And then, a nearly blind, relatively slow, physically unimpressive primate walked into it, carrying fire and the accumulated cultural knowledge that the dark things flinched first. That was the end of something that had lasted longer than almost anything else in the history of animal life on Earth. The cost to the nocturnal world was not immediate. These things never are. But it was total. Researchers studying what ecologists call the landscape of fear have documented something extraordinary happening in ecosystems where humans are present. Animals that were once confident nocturnal operators are compressing themselves into smaller and smaller windows of darkness. Not because humans are hunting them at night in those specific locations, but because the mere possibility of human presence after dark has rewritten their internal risk calculators. A study published in Science in 2018 analyzed movement data from 62 mammal species across 6 continents. The finding was stark. In areas with high human activity, mammals had shifted to being 1.36 times more nocturnal on average, cramming their entire active lives into the hours least likely to overlap with humans. But here is the devastating detail inside that statistic. When humans started pushing into the night, the truly nocturnal animals, the ones who had owned those hours for millions of years, had nowhere to go. They couldn't become more nocturnal. They were already there. The crepuscular animals shifted later. The nocturnal animals compressed further. And some of them simply stopped moving as much at all. Lions, the apex predators of the African savanna, animals that had hunted freely at any hour they chose for millions of years, are now measurably more active on nights with less moonlight, specifically because less light means less chance of encountering humans. The king of the savanna is scheduling its hunts around us. The night owl is being pushed out by the species that was never supposed to survive the dark in the first place. There is a word for what humans did to the night. Ecologists call it the human shield effect. But that phrase makes it sound defensive, makes it sound like humans were just protecting themselves. What actually happened was an invasion. The night was a complete ecosystem. Hundreds of millions of years of evolution had built it, layer by layer, predator by predator, prey by prey, into something that functioned without us, something that didn't need us, something that, for most of its history, actively excluded us. We didn't belong there. Our eyes said so. Our biology said so. Every piece of evolutionary architecture we possess said so, and we went anyway. First with fire, then with torches, then with lanterns, then with electric lights that turned entire cities into permanent noon, then with floodlights and highways, and the ambient glow of civilization that can be seen from space, that has extended the human-lit zone so far that true darkness now exists in fewer places on Earth than at any point in the last billion years. Every step further into the night was another door closing for the things that had always lived there. Here is what I want you to sit with. Right now, somewhere in the world, a leopard that would have been the undisputed master of its territory 50 years ago is changing when it hunts because a road was built nearby. A hyena clan is shifting its territory edge because a village expanded. A family of owls, birds so perfectly engineered for darkness that they can catch a mouse by sound alone in complete blackout, is navigating around the light pollution of a city that didn't exist a century ago. None of these animals chose this. None of them have any framework for understanding what happened to their night. They only know that the darkness they were built for is getting smaller, and the strange, fire-carrying, voice-making creature that was never supposed to survive in it just keeps coming. You live in a world so lit that you have probably never experienced true darkness. A darkness with no glow on the horizon, no ambient light from a screen or a street lamp. The kind of darkness your ancestors sat inside every single night and survived by luck and fire and the desperate hope that the things circling them were not going to push past the flame. That darkness is almost gone now. You removed it. Your species removed it, one fire at a time, across 100,000 years, until the night itself became just another place humans decided to go. The nocturnal world is still out there, compressed, adapting, rescheduling, retreating, still trying to find the hours and the places that the lights haven't reached yet, still looking for the dark, still looking for the world before the fire stayed lit. If this made you think about the world a little differently, hit that like button and subscribe. Every week, we go deep on the stories that history forgot to tell you, the ones hiding just underneath everything you thought you already knew. Subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.